That's the merging of the heavens and the earth, making peace on the planet. So this morning, with Awake with Gabriel, we are talking about, let's say we're ironing out some misconceptions and getting some clarity. And the topic is iron. But the real topic is, why do women live 5 years longer than men? The average woman lives to be 80.5 years. The average white male, 75.4 years. That's the same for Hispanics. For Afro-Americans, it's 5 years less, 75 and 70. Now, why? What is the issue here? Why are women living longer than men? Is it because they're smarter? Or more resilient? Or we need to ask people to be quiet out there, if you could, please. And the answer is a very interesting answer. What do women do that men can't do besides have babies? Is women menstruate. And that menstruation adds 5 years to their life. Well, what are we talking about? Usually women, feel weaker after menses. They aren't as clear mentally. What's happening? Well, what's happening is the average woman loses 20 to 80 milligrams of microliters of blood each menses. It's the equivalent of donating a pint of blood a year. So what advantage are women getting out of losing a blood a year? Not to also discount the amount of blood that women lose when they give birth. And that actually is the secret, okay, is that they are having regular blood loss, and that is giving them an extra 5 years of life. Well, why? Well, in a deeper way, what's going on is iron, which is a very, very good mineral. It's a mineral of vitality, a mineral of high prana. It pulls oxygen into the system, and it moves oxygen around because of its superior ability to let go of electrons, to take electrons. It does these incredible things for us. But it also has a downside. The downside is it creates lots of free radicals because of the way it moves electrons. And apparently, the free radical damage from excess iron is what the problem is. It seems to be associated with higher loads of iron in the system, seems to be associated with increased heart attacks, stroke, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, and other neurodegenerative diseases. And it also affects the immune system. So all these things become extremely important when you're looking at the total picture. So the advantage that women have and why they live 5 years longer has to do with the fact that they're having less free radical difficulties because they have less iron in their system. The average woman runs about 2/3 the amount of iron as a man does. And the iron, what we call ferritin, which is iron storage, on the average woman is about 100 and the average man is 150. So that's really important when you see the whole picture. But I want to go back for a second because there's a tendency in the live food movement to take saying iron's bad, suddenly we don't want iron. Now, iron we absolutely need for our vitality, our magnetism, our energy, our cognition. We need it for all these reasons. And high iron foods include Irish moss and really all the sea vegetables, the green vegetables, the blackberries, blueberries, black cherries, and most important, high chlorophyll foods. There's a really interesting thing because hemoglobin has the exact same structure as chlorophyll. The only difference is that hemoglobin has iron in the center and chlorophyll has magnesium. Now, research shows that when people are anemic, if they take lots and lots of high chlorophyll foods, that's a way of treating the anemia. So there's probably some biological transformation a la Curvan, who shows, for example, manganese can transmute to iron, and that's probably what we're seeing here. Is that somehow the magnesium transmutes to iron and creates hemoglobin. So these high iron foods are important, but let's go back to the idea of vitality, clarity of mind, and health, general well-being, that you get when you have sufficient iron in your system, as well as the magnetism. And iron is also not only in the blood as hemoglobin, but is also in the hair and nails, and in the gastric fluids, and in the lymphatic system. So iron plays a very important part in our general ability to be healthy, vital, and have high prana. Iron draws oxygen, which is prana. So there's a balance here. So we don't want to say no iron, but we do want to say, wait a second. If women are living 5 years longer because they have less iron, let's pay attention, let's figure this out. What can we do? And so they actually did some research, and they gave, men phlebotomies, which is, in the U.S. is a particular treatment, in Ayurvedic it's one of the 5 panchakarmas, is bloodletting, which we haven't done yet at the Tree of Life, but it really makes sense now. Of course, the easiest thing is to donate blood. But let's go back, retread for a second, and get the importance of the excess iron, because it creates free radicals that generally breaks down the system over time. And creates, as we mentioned, just to repeat it for everybody, increased rates of heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. So women are protected until they stop having their periods. Okay? And the way it is that when men reach maturity, like in late teens, early 20s, suddenly their iron load goes way up because they're not using it to expand for their growth. So they peak in terms of iron in their 30s, and then they stay that way till their 70s, and then they start to drop down a little bit. And women don't get going with the iron peak until their 50s. And that seems to be associated with the increase after menses, the increase of heart attacks for women. It has nothing to do with estrogen. That's been very clearly shown at this point, that estrogen is not a protective against heart disease. And so when people reach their 90s, then their iron levels reach equality between men and women. But before you get to your 90s, you need to do something. Okay? Particularly for younger people, this is important, people in their 30s, but even after 60, the suggestion would be phlebotomy twice a year, like donate blood twice a year. Now, why? Well, because you need to drop your iron storage, your iron binding, by that much to reach safe levels, meaning safe levels. So, for example, I did research, 3-year research, that was done on VA vets, ages 40 to about 80. And what they found, amazingly enough, is when they had their phlebotomies twice a year for 3 years, that the rate of death from all things, all diseases, was dropped 54%. Wow. That's quite a statement. And the death from heart disease was dropped 57%. Well, you look at that and think, oh my goodness. Okay? So, really there's a good reason to, for men specifically, to do phlebotomies or donate